Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to Wednesdays with Ray. Join us this week as we continue our Knit Along Sock series. Today we are going to be going over how to knit a heel flap and then turn the heel. So what I have here is a sample of a knitted heel. Obviously you're going to have something that is not just a plain square, but is actually in the round on a sock, but this is what we're going to use today just to get the technique down. I've already done quite a bit of the sock here, and as you can see, almost a ribbed pattern starts to emerge. The reason we get this is that when you are working a flat heel flap, on your right side rows you are slipping every other stitch. So what we end up getting are these little floats, and the function they serve is they really thicken up the fabric and give it a little bit of extra strength, which we definitely need because the heels of our socks tend to take a beating, and the more sturdy the fabric can be, the longer you can go in between having to darn your socks. As with anything else, when you're stranding, you want to make sure that you are being very careful with your tension. You don't want to sucker this in too much with too tight a tension, and too loose is going to end up not lending it the strength that you want. Luckily, as this is only slipping one stitch at a time, it tends to be pretty easy to keep your tension even. The other important aspect of working a heel flap is that you are going to be slipping the first stitch of each row. The reason we do this is, as you can see, you get a really nice line of slip stitches here. And what that does for us is it makes it very easy when we go to pick up stitches for the gusset later. Very, very easy to pick those up. So to knit your heel flap, I'm going to start us on our wrong side row. We are slipping our first stitch as if to purl. And since this is a wrong side row, I'm just going to purl straight across. Once you have finished purling across your row, you are going to flip your work, and again we are going to slip the first stitch of our row, slipping purlwise, knit the next stitch, slipping purlwise, knit the next stitch. You're going to do this until you get to the very end of your row. These slip stitches are what are forming these long chains that make it appear as if you have ribbing on your sock. So I have just finished a right side row and we are ready to turn our heel. So let's talk about that a little bit. What is turning a heel and why do we do it? So when we are working this flat portion of our heel flap, this is what is going to extend down the back of your foot. Now we do not have square 90-degree shaped feet, so we want to curve it so that it hugs the bottom of our foot a little bit. And I will show you what that looks like. So this sock, we have worked that flap, and then you can see here, this curves and fits so nicely on the bottom of your foot. I do end up working short row heels a lot, but these are just such a nice, really snug fit to socks, and I find that they hold up really, really well, so they're just a treat to work. Don't be intimidated by the turning of the heel. We're going to show you how to do that today. So on our wrong side, our first row that we're going to turn our heel, we are of course still going to slip that first stitch because we want to keep this going. And your pattern will tell you how many stitches to purl over. So we slip one, purl over however many is indicated. In this case, I stopped 6 stitches before the end. And then this is how you're going to turn. From the wrong side, we're going to purl 2 together, and then purl 1 more. This is important. From here, we're going to stop and turn our work, because turned heels like this are still essentially a short row technique. From here, I'm going to slip my first stitch and knit straight across, not slipping as I have been, but just knit straight across until there's only 6 stitches left on the other side. And again, your pattern will indicate where you should stop and how many you should knit, so we're not going to get into like the designing math of how this works today. So I've stopped, I have 6 stitches left. I'm going to slip, slip, knit, because I want this to lean over to the left. Alternatively, you can also use the slip, twist, purl technique I showed you on another tutorial earlier, but it's not a huge deal. This is on the bottom of your foot. Slip, slip, knit, knit 1 more, and then we're going to turn. So on my next wrong side, I am once again slipping that first stitch and then purling all the way over until I am one stitch before that gap. You can always mark this with stitch markers. I like doing, this is such an easy visual technique that I usually don't use them, but you can absolutely use any aid that you like. When you have gotten to that gap, we want to close it. So how we're going to do that is purl two together and purl one more. Similarly, we are of course still slipping that first stitch on our next row. I knitted up to one stitch before that gap. Now I need to close that gap up. So I'm going to slip, slip, knit, then knit one more. You will continue to work these 2 rows until you have worked all the stitches and come all the way to the ends. So as you can see, this is my last gap. Going to slip, slip, knit, and my heel is turned. Look at that. Generally at this point you're always ending on a right side row because this is when you would begin to work in the round again to use these stitches to pick up your gusset. We will go over that next week. Thank you so much for joining us today, and even if you aren't doing the sock knit along with us, I hope that you can use these technique videos to help you tackle knitting your first pair of socks. If you haven't done it yet, there's no reason to be afraid. We can get you through it. We'll see you next week.